The evening was meant to be perfect. The soft glow of candlelight filled the room. Their favorite song played gently in the background, and a beautifully decorated cake sat on the table. It was their anniversary, a celebration of love, commitment, and the life they had built together. But something felt off. A lingering tension had settled in the air, unspoken yet palpable. As she adjusted the flowers on the dining table, her phone buzzed with a message that stopped her cold. It was from an unknown number, a single line that sent shivers down her spine. "Do you know where your husband is right now?" Confused and uneasy, she ignored it at first, but the thought lingered. Moments later, a second message arrived, this time with a photo. Her heart sank as she stared at the screen. It was her husband and her sister, together in a way that left no room for doubt. The room seemed to spin around her as the betrayal began to sink in. The man she had vowed to spend her life with, and the sister she had trusted with everything, both had shattered her world in an instant. Her chest tightened, her breath quickened, and tears threatened to spill as the realization hit her. The night that was supposed to celebrate love had turned into a nightmare. On the night that was supposed to celebrate love, she discovered a betrayal that shattered her world. Amara was the kind of person who wore her heart on her sleeve. At 32 years old, she had a warmth about her that drew people in. A nurturing personality that made her the one friends and family turned to in times of need. Her love for her husband, Ryan, and her sister, Sophie, was the cornerstone of her life. She believed in the power of trust and loyalty, values she held above all else. Ryan was everything she had ever dreamed of in a partner. Handsome, charismatic, and ambitious, he had swept her off her feet the moment they met. They shared a love story, straight out of a romance novel. Chance meeting, instant connection, and a whirlwind courtship that culminated in a beautiful wedding. Ryan's supportive nature and thoughtful gestures made her feel cherished every single day, or so she thought. Her sister Sophie was her best friend, confidant, and partner in crime. Despite being 2 years younger, Sophie had a vibrant personality that complemented Amara's calm demeanor. Growing up, they had been inseparable, sharing secrets, dreams, and a bond that no one could break, or so Amara believed. Sophie's presence in Amara's life wasn't just important, it was essential. She was the first person Amara called with good news, and the one she leaned on during hard times. Together, the three of them painted a picture of a perfect family. Ryan and Sophie got along wonderfully, often joking and chatting at family dinners. Amara loved watching them laugh, feeling a sense of gratitude that her two favorite people shared such a strong bond. But as close as they seemed, cracks had begun to form in this seemingly perfect triangle. Amara had noticed subtle changes in Ryan's behavior. More late nights at work, vague explanations about his whereabouts, and a distracted air during their conversations. Sophie, too, had been unusually distant, cancelling plans and avoiding long phone calls. Amara dismissed these signs as coincidences, choosing instead to focus on planning their upcoming anniversary celebration. She poured her heart into organizing the perfect evening, unaware that the very people she was celebrating were hiding a devastating secret. Amara woke up early on the morning of her anniversary, a smile already gracing her face. Today wasn't just any day. It was a celebration of love and commitment, a milestone in her life. She had spent weeks planning the perfect evening, determined to make it unforgettable for Ryan. The entire house was transformed, candles lined the staircase, fresh flowers adorned every corner, and the scent of baked goods wafted from the kitchen. She spent hours in the kitchen preparing Ryan's favorite dishes. Each detail mattered, from the handmade napkin rings to the playlist she had curated with songs that held special memories for them. As she worked, her excitement grew. She imagined the look on Ryan's face when he walked through the door, a mix of surprise and admiration. But amidst her joy, there was a faint shadow of unease. Ryan had been unusually distant lately. He claimed work was overwhelming, with long hours and last-minute meetings. Amara wanted to believe him, but his demeanor was different. He seemed distracted, checking his phone more often than usual and smiling faintly at messages he never shared with her. Then there was Sophie. She had cancelled their weekly coffee meetups 3 times in a row, citing vague excuses that didn't sit right with Amara. The once inseparable sisters now seemed to exist in separate worlds. Amara brushed off her concerns, choosing to focus on the evening instead. That afternoon, as she placed the finishing touches on the dining table, Ryan called to say he'd be late. "Don't wait up," he added, his voice curt. Disappointment flickered in Amara's chest, but she reminded herself that tonight was about love and patience. She decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Later, as she arranged the candles, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was from an unknown number. The message read, "Do you know where Ryan is right now?" Amara froze, her heart skipping a beat. She stared at the screen, confusion and dread battling for dominance. She decided to ignore it, convincing herself it was a prank. But the unease refused to fade. Minutes later, another message arrived. This time it was a photo, grainy but unmistakable. Ryan and Sophie were sitting together in a cafe, their heads close, laughter evident in their expressions. Amara's stomach churned as the reality began to sink in. She felt her knees weaken, and she gripped the edge of the table for support. Her mind raced. This couldn't be true. There had to be an explanation. But as she scrolled through the messages, the evidence piled up. Screenshots of chats, more photos, and a message that read, "You deserve to know the truth." The room seemed to close in on her as betrayal took hold. She replayed the past weeks in her mind, the little signs she had ignored, the secretive smiles, the cancelled plans, the distant hugs. It all made sense now. Amara sank into a chair, tears spilling down her face as the weight of the betrayal crashed over her. The anniversary evening she had planned with so much love was now shattered, replaced by heartbreak and disbelief. She knew she had to confront them, but the question loomed: how? Amara sat frozen, her phone still clutched tightly in her trembling hands. Her mind raced, replaying the images and messages over and over again. Each one felt like a fresh wound cutting deeper into her heart. She couldn't believe it. Ryan, the man she loved, and Sophie, her sister, had betrayed her in the cruelest way imaginable. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, the sound magnified in the deafening silence of the room. Amara's breath hitched as waves of anger and sadness surged through her. She alternated between sobbing uncontrollably and staring blankly into space, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. How could the two people she trusted most shatter her world like this? Unable to sit still any longer, Amara grabbed her coat and keys, driven by a storm of emotions she could no longer contain. She wasn't sure where she was going, but her feet carried her to Sophie's apartment. Her hands shook as she knocked on the door, her heart pounding in her chest. When Sophie opened the door, her face fell. She knew. The guilt was written all over her expression. "Amara, Sophie began, but Amara cut her off, her voice trembling with fury. "How could you?" Amara's voice broke as tears streamed down her face. "You're my sister, Sophie. How could you do this to me?" Sophie looked down, unable to meet her sister's eyes. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. It just happened." "Don't you dare say it just happened," Amara snapped. "You knew what you were doing. You both did." The argument escalated, voices rising and emotions spilling over. Sophie tried to justify her actions, but every word only deepened the wound. Finally, Amara turned on her heel and left, her heart pounding as she drove home, her mind replaying the confrontation. At home, she waited for Ryan to return. When he finally walked through the door, she confronted him with the evidence. His face turned pale as he realized he had been caught. "Amara, let me explain," he pleaded, but she wasn't interested in excuses. "Explain what? That you betrayed me with my own sister?" she demanded, her voice raw with pain. "You've destroyed everything, Ryan, everything." That night, Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her mind replayed every moment, every word. She felt hollow, as if the betrayal had stripped her of everything that once gave her strength. Anger burned in her chest, but it was accompanied by sadness, disbelief, and a sense of loss she couldn't shake. She questioned herself repeatedly. Had she missed the signs? Was she not enough? The questions haunted her, pulling her deeper into despair. Yet amidst the pain, a flicker of resolve began to grow. She realized she had a choice to make. Let the betrayal define her or rise above it. The next morning, Amara stood in front of the mirror, her eyes puffy and red from crying. She took a deep breath and stared at her reflection. "This is not the end," she whispered to herself. "I won't let them break me." She began to formulate a plan. Confronting them was one thing, but what came next was entirely up to her. She could forgive, try to rebuild, or walk away and start fresh. As she packed a small suitcase, she felt a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in days. Her decision wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming her life. Amara stepped out of the house with her head held high, ready to face whatever came next. Her path wasn't clear, but she knew one thing for certain: she would find her strength again. The morning after the confrontation was eerily silent. Amara sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in her hands, untouched and cold. The house, once filled with warmth and love, now felt like a hollow shell. She glanced at the empty chair across from her, the place where Ryan used to sit reading the news and cracking jokes. The absence felt heavier than the betrayal itself. Ryan had left after their argument, taking his belongings and leaving behind a note that read, "I'll give you space." Amara crumpled it and threw it into the trash, her anger bubbling beneath her numb exterior. Her phone buzzed incessantly with messages and missed calls from Sophie, but Amara ignored them all. The thought of speaking to her sister felt unbearable. Her mother called later that afternoon, having heard whispers about the incident. "Amara, is it true?" Her voice trembled, and Amara broke down, recounting everything through choked sobs. "I don't know how to face this, Mom," she admitted. Her mother, always a pillar of strength, responded, "Take it one day at a time, my love. You don't owe them anything." Word of the betrayal spread quickly through their close-knit community. Friends who once admired Amara and Ryan as the perfect couple now whispered behind her back. Invitations to events dried up, and her phone fell silent, except for the occasional sympathetic text. The shame of public scrutiny weighed heavily on her, making even trips to the grocery store feel unbearable. But it wasn't just the external judgment. The betrayal had shaken her self-esteem to its core. She avoided mirrors, unable to face the woman who had once been confident and full of life. At work, she buried herself in projects, hoping to drown out the thoughts that haunted her. Her relationship with Sophie was non-existent. Despite Sophie's repeated attempts to apologize, Amara refused to answer her calls or open the door when she visited. "I can't forgive you," Amara whispered to herself every time she saw Sophie's name flash on her screen. But amidst the pain, a spark of determination began to grow. One evening, as she sifted through old photos of happier times, she realized something. Her life didn't have to end here. The betrayal didn't define her. How she chose to rise from it would. Amara decided to start small. She began taking long walks in the morning, letting the fresh air clear her mind. She signed up for yoga classes, finding solace in the quiet moments of meditation. Slowly but surely, she began to reclaim her sense of self. One afternoon, she dusted off her old sketchbook and began to draw again, a hobby she had abandoned years ago. It was cathartic, each pencil stroke a step toward healing. Through her art, she rediscovered pieces of herself she thought she had lost. Her social circle, too, began to change. Amara reached out to old friends she had lost touch with, reconnecting with people who reminded her of her strength and worth. Over time, the whispers and judgment of others faded into the background, replaced by a quiet confidence that grew within her. By the end of the year, Amara stood on her own 2 feet, stronger than ever. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. She had transformed her heartbreak into a journey of self-discovery, proving to herself that she was more than the sum of her circumstances. Months of rebuilding herself had transformed Amara into a confident, self-assured woman. The shadows of betrayal still lingered, but they no longer controlled her. She decided it was time to confront the ghosts of her past, not for them, but for herself. On a crisp autumn evening, she found herself at a high-profile charity event, one she had been invited to as a rising artist showcasing her work. As she mingled with guests, she noticed Ryan across the room. He was with Sophie, their laughter and easy conversation catching her attention. It was the first time she had seen them together since that night, and instead of anger, she felt an odd sense of clarity. They hadn't changed, but she had. Amara decided to approach them, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Both turned toward her as she arrived, their expressions shifting from surprise to unease. "Amara," Ryan began, his voice faltering, but she raised a hand to stop him. "I'm not here to argue," she said calmly, her voice steady and composed. "I just wanted to thank you." They exchanged confused glances. "Thank us? For what?" Sophie asked hesitantly. "For showing me who you really are," Amara replied. "Because of you, I found out how strong I could be. I rebuilt my life, my way, and I'm better for it." Her words carried weight, not just for them, but for herself. With a small, graceful smile, she turned and walked away, leaving them standing in stunned silence. The room felt lighter as she rejoined the crowd, her head held high. But the night wasn't over. As she returned to her exhibit, a guest approached her with a surprising revelation. It was Sophie's ex-boyfriend, who revealed a shocking truth. Sophie's betrayal wasn't just personal, it had financial roots. Sophie had borrowed large sums of money from Ryan under false pretenses, leveraging Amara's trust to gain access to funds she desperately needed. The pieces began to fall into place. Amara realized Sophie had manipulated the situation to cover her tracks, using Ryan's involvement as a shield. The betrayal ran deeper than Amara had imagined. But instead of anger, she felt an overwhelming sense of closure. This wasn't her burden anymore. She had risen above their deceit, and they would have to live with the consequences of their actions. Amara stepped back into the spotlight of the charity event, her poise unshaken. As the night went on, she received praise for her art and admiration for her resilience. For the first time in a long time, she felt free, not just from Ryan and Sophie, but from the pain they had caused. In the weeks that followed the charity event, Amara embraced her newfound sense of peace. The confrontation with Ryan and Sophie had been the closure she needed, and the unexpected revelation from Sophie's ex-boyfriend had only solidified her resolve to move forward without looking back. She had learned to let go, not for them, but for herself. Her art, once a forgotten passion, now flourished. Each piece she created was a reflection of her journey, blending vibrant colors of hope with shadows of her past. Galleries began to notice her work, and her exhibits became a symbol of resilience and transformation. People connected with her story through her art, finding inspiration in her ability to turn pain into beauty. Amara also began sharing her experiences openly, writing blog posts and speaking at community events about overcoming betrayal and finding strength. Her words resonated with many, particularly women who had faced similar struggles. She became a voice for those seeking the courage to rebuild their lives, showing that it was possible to rise from the ashes stronger than ever. On a crisp morning, as she stood in her art studio overlooking the city, Amara felt a quiet contentment. The sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting a warm glow over her latest painting, a phoenix rising from flames. It was a perfect metaphor for her journey. Her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from her mother. "Proud of you, my girl." Amara smiled softly, feeling the warmth of her family's unwavering support. She realized that she had found something far more valuable than what she had lost, her sense of self-worth. True strength comes from within, she thought, and betrayal can often lead to the greatest transformations. Amara's story reminds us all that life's greatest challenges can lead to our most profound growth. Pain, while difficult, often serves as a catalyst for transformation. The journey isn't easy, but the destination is worth every step. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience and hope. Share your thoughts below. How have you found strength in the face of adversity?